It's very hard to change. I kind of think of these companies, Brian, as like amoebas or a cell. A virus comes in, and does it get expelled? And what point does the virus actually become part of the DNA of this thing? You need dedicate, and I can see arguments both sides. Everybody's got their day job. We got to put these people over here to really scan the universe and know what it is. Okay, pitfall is, those are the special people with the ideas, and we're the people doing the work. I'm Paul Tyler, Chief Marketing Officer for Nassau Financial Group, and this is the future of insurance.
Paul, it is really good to sit down with you. And yeah, we've sort of you're one of the few people I've actually seen in person a bunch of times, yet we haven't really talked. So
I'm not sure how this hasn't happened. It's property and casualty. Life
we're not supposed to.
Annuities.
We're not supposed to talk to each other. Maybe that's what.
Absolutely
we're
not.
Breaking all the rules today.
Yeah.
I do love it. I'm getting some time with you. Can you give people just a little bit of background on who you are, and I'd love to hear about Nassau as well.
Yeah, sure. My background, like everybody else, is I stumbled upon this, came through the clearing of the woods, and there was the insurance company in the forest meadow. Same kind of discovery journey everybody else did. I started out in the management consulting world and did a lot of work in the group health space back when a lot of the insurers had not only life insurance, individual life insurance, but had health insurance. And so I really saw was sort of came into this place during one big wave of transition. I worked MetLife for a number of years. So, Brian, you name the function, I probably worked in it. Okay. Everything from finance, strategy, consulting, technology, compliance. That was one of my jobs. Commissions, payments. Went through at that point. It was one of the largest demutualizations in the country, and we shattered records for, I think, imagine this, it was like, it was like a $20 billion IPO, which now looks like nothing.
Yeah. But at the time,
it was
actually a bunch of money.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a big effort. I think it's interesting to look back from now and look at and think about sort of the perspective of, I guess, what we got right and what we got wrong. We thought at that point, okay, there's going to be a ton of consolidation. You're not going to get any new insurance companies. Fast forward to today, there are a lot of new insurance companies.
Yeah.
Thought the stock market was going to be important for raising capital. It turns out, private equity is really driven, at least really driving, capital in our space today.
Yeah.
Nassau is a 6-year-old company, founded in 2000, actually, I guess 7 years, founded in 2015, acquired Phoenix Life Insurance Company in 2016. Phoenix was 150-year-old, 160-year-old company at the time. And so I came in as Chief Marketing Officer to drive, help create a new brand where one didn't exist, which sort of take the best of the new and the best of the old. Phoenix actually wrote an insurance policy for Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
Paid the claim.
Yeah.
Actually paid the claim. And so, it's kind of an interesting journey. So we've, I've done a lot of work building the brand, taking the company, really pushing the digital edge of the company, help drive, really push us into the cloud, which is, you can imagine, is a continuing journey for the company. It's been a fun ride the past 7 years here.
I didn't realize Nassau was as new as it is as a brand. I mean, I understand, like, you picked up this old carrier and transformed it. But maybe it's because I'm in the Northeast. Maybe it's because I'm, been part of the kind of insurtech hub of, that Hartford has kicked off. I think actually Stacy has the trademark on the word insurtech.
Good luck trying
there.
to. Stacy, go sue people. Don't get excited by this Fox Dominion lawsuit. Don't
That's right.
sue.
It's open ended. But I have seen Nassau pretty engaged in the possibility of change in the industry. And so that's where it's like when you said like 6, 7 years old, I was kind of blown away by that, because that means as a brand, like you really kicked off around the same time that InsurTech became an actual thing. And like right from the bat, on top of building everything else, you guys made this decision to be a part of trying to fuel the change. So you have been, as a company, very engaged in a number of kind of innovation drives and efforts, and you're very supportive of InsurTech Hartford. And I know folks who are like, oh, when we got offered office space at Nassau's offices there, and to help incubate, like it's, I don't know if that was a strategic decision from the start, or was like, look, we need this industry to change if we're going to thrive in it, or what. But I'm curious about why,
Yeah,
and what
sure.
that
Well,
meant for you.
yeah, and I'll say, you can change company cultures, but yeah, you really sort of can take aspects of a company's culture and amplify certain parts. And I would
Yeah,
say innovation was in the DNA of Phoenix for many years. Phoenix was one of the first carriers to actually offer lower insurance rates for women. One of the first companies to actually offer non-smoker rates. I mean, very innovative company for an organization of its size. If
yeah,
you go back through the history of the company, so fast forward to 2016, we have very young, for this business, CEO and his co-founder, who's our chief operating officer. They bought this company in their 40s,
that
and
is very
well,
young to lead an
yeah.
insurance company. Yeah,
Oh
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And they really wanted to, do something different with the company. So, I came up, and one of the reasons I came there was, vision they had, do something different in the business, think differently, act differently. I'd done work at a prior company doing a lot of the digital innovation. We did some iPad apps. I did a startup before that in the mobile app business,
yeah,
when I wasn't even sure what that was. um, but uh, they've looked to do things differently. One of the big objectives was build a stronger relationship in the Hartford community. And that really
mhm,
kind of led to what we did. When I showed up in 2016 in Hartford, it was kind of interesting. It was almost like a convergence of the minds to get InsurTech kicked into gear in
yeah,
Hartford. So,
yeah,
I knew people at CT Innovation, Matt McCooey, who's the head of Connecticut's venture arm. He said to me, Paul, why don't we have an accelerator? I said, you're right.
yeah,
Same time, Luke Bronin was saying, how do we revitalize Hartford, bring jobs back in here? He had some real deep connections with people at Techstars. The state at that point said, look, we want to keep jobs, keep innovation in the state. The state said, let's fund these innovation zones around the city. So
mm,
it was almost like the horns went off. We all kind of found each other, and then ended up pitching and winning a matching grant from the state of Connecticut. And that actually funded Startup Boot Camp. I think you went to some of the Startup Boot Camp events in
I definitely
Hartford.
did. Yeah, and some of the digital, like virtual ones, but I came down as a judge in one of the
Okay.
competitions. Yeah,
Yeah, so we went from like nothing in 2016, nothing meaning, Stacy, I think, had a meetup group called Insurtech Hartford,
right.
going on. As you say, trademarked the word
Yeah,
Insurtech. And uh, so we just kind of had this sort of natural uh, sort of energy to kick this stuff up. All came together. I worked to get, funding with, a number of insurance carriers around the area to fund Startup Boot Camp to come in. Fast forward to 2000, and I guess it was 2018. It was 2000, yeah, 2018. And middle of 2018, we had Startup Boot Camp. So in the second or third year, Hartford Healthcare had a digital health accelerator open. Stanley Black and Decker had brought Techstars in to do a manufacturing program. We had a couple of things at Upper Hartford going, and uh, we started to restack our building, and suddenly had a lot of empty space. We said, again, look back in time. Hey, let's blow out all these cubes. Let's get everybody next to each other where you can reach out and touch people,
Yeah.
in an open area.
Yeah.
You know where this is going to head. And
Yeah.
so we had and sort of re-outfit our space, and ended up with some excess space when we had one tenant had half another floor. And Phil and Gus said to me, "Hey, Paul, why don't you do something with startups?" So that point, I said the need in Hartford was really to support startups after they came in through these programs to help them get more contracts.
Yeah.
And as you know, even if you're a sales force, good luck trying to get a contract with an insurance company 3 months after you've arrived in town. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we opened our doors, brought the startups in, and as you said, here's some great space, come work. Turned out even then, most of the startups were virtual.
Yeah.
But what turned out to be really valuable were the events we held, where we helped connect startups with, some of the people who could actually write checks in the Hartford community.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the niche we found, Brian, is really not doing the conferences, not doing the meetups, but really trying to create sort of structured connections between innovators, universities, um, people who have sort of line management responsibility and carriers in the town, and
Yeah.
creating forums where deals happen, companies get funded. I'd say we've got a good track record of helping companies who already have a product in place and maybe a customer getting customer 2 or 3.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really interesting in that, Paul, is you weren't talking about there was a company we were interested in buying the wares of or whatever. You were talking about the sort of greater good and contributing to something or help facilitating something with which I imagine is like, yes, you might benefit from that directly. Maybe, that company thrives and they end up supplying something that is valuable to Nassau. But it seems sort of like a good goes round, and like if you do the right things, it will come back to support you later, which I think is a tough thing for a lot of us to keep in mind. It's like this may not have an explicit ROI. That doesn't mean it isn't highly valuable to do it. And I mean, from an innovation standpoint, you almost have to go in with that mindset, or you're just going to find yourself disappointed a lot.
Yes, and as you know, driving an innovation side of a company, it's hard. It's a hard job,
Yeah.
right? It's like, what is innovation? Well, it's in the eye of the beholder,
Yeah.
right? It's you're not really responsible for keeping the existing machinery going. You got to bring new stuff in. So I think the initial objective was, let's see, you do some good in the community. But as you'd suspect, people said, "Well, okay, but what are you doing for us, Paul?"
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
we've shifted gears a little bit after through the pandemic to focus probably more 80% in our industry space, the retirement space,
Yeah.
and a little more on bringing startups in that we can work with. So right now we probably have 3 projects, everything from pilot to paid projects with maybe 4 startups at this point. Um, so it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah.
As you know, this process never stops.
Yeah.
But we're having fun.
Well, and so what I mean, I think that's a natural progression to get a little bit more niche down is like, okay, but we should have some expertise in it and offer more than just square footage that companies do
Yes.
not care about in a post-pandemic, highly virtual space or time. But as you get a little bit more thematic tied to the core of your business, what are some of the things that you're getting into or sort of the direction that Nassau is like, yeah, we think this is where this is going, so we're going to help to fuel that.
Yeah. And what I'll tell you, you'll say, okay, not that different from property and casualty. I would say a lot of the base technology and base problems are the same. They just manifest themselves in different ways in
Yeah.
different areas. So, the biggest difference between, the annuity and life space versus property casualty is people all say, well, it's demand driven on this side. This side, you have to actually quote sell it, which is not necessarily a good perceived word.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, as you know, that's not entirely true at all in any of
Yeah.
these
No one
spaces.
actually wanted to buy the PNC insurance product. They
Yeah,
had to.
please, I want a cyber risk insurance
Be like, oh, I
policy,
have to
right?
buy a car to get this auto insurance policy. Come on. Can I just have the insurance?
Yes, can I please just
Yeah.
have my car insurance? But I think where you start to see the issues occur is on the problems we're solving. The transactional volume is much lower on the life annuity side.
Mhm.
But I think the processing and the administration stuff is much more complex because you sell an annuity contract or life insurance policy. This thing is may be on the books for 50 years. You can't just say this year I'm going to price out. I don't like this line.
Right.
I'm going to triple, quadruple prices and be done with it in a year.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So you're kind of stuck with what you build or what you design. So the problems we have startups in working with us right now are things as mundane as, hey, Bryan, you submitted this policy. Are you really licensed in that state to submit this policy? And have you completed the education required by by us and by the states?
Yeah.
It's actually a really hard problem.
Yeah.
So we have a company in who's working hard for us to solve it. For us, gee, customers are very expensive to retain. How do you do it?
Yeah.
Can we predict lapses? Okay, so for us, we sell all our products through independent agents. Are the good ones happy? Are they sad working with us?
Yeah.
We know when they leave, we know when they don't submit business, but when that happens, it's too late.
It's too
So
late.
we're working with a firm in the AI space to do some predictive modeling and actually almost create like the alarm bell going off so we can
Yeah.
be maybe 3 to 6 months ahead of the curve on that.
Yeah.
So these are kind of problems that we'll say. I think they manifest themselves differently in these industries, but how do you use machine learning to understand your business, your dynamics better? Big problem. How are you more efficient in terms of complying with a variety of regulations?
Yeah.
I think that's one. Another area which we haven't cracked, but we're looking at. We're hunting for companies. So people are listening who are really good at doing this. Is what do you do with these mainframes?
Yeah.
We've got all these big mainframes, old code. Can we can send it off to one of these vendors, but they've just got version, we have version 11.2 and they've got version 13 of this software, which is probably up to version 25.
Yeah.
But version 25 is obsolete.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you pack this thing up and put it in the cloud? Do you re-engineer, break it apart? Do you use, Chat GPT or one of these other, very sophisticated refactoring applications to rewrite this thing and port it to the cloud?
Yeah.
Those are huge expense items for us. And by the way, they're big obstacles for us to do, really create different experiences and different products for people.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the drivers of the key difference. Getting back to your point, like you can have a customer who you wrote 50 years ago. It's not just that you're stuck with like it was a bad write. You've got it anyway. So my father got a call from a life insurance agent. He's like, we need to make a change to your policy, and they can't find it. And he was talking to me about. I'm like, didn't they just search in their system? No, it was paper. So like they had to go to a paper warehouse, and my dad's older, right? So like had to. So those 50-year-old mainframes or whatever the age is, they're still actively in use with active live business. You can't just mothball them or whatever.
No,
It's really complicated.
Well, exactly. And the cost of taking this block of business and moving it over to this system can be unbelievably prohibitive for 100 policies.
Yeah.
What do you do?
If it could even be done. Right. That's the thing, is like it's a small block. So the numbers never work out, but then you're always stuck with, the ball keeps moving, but like, so then it's not the things that are 50-year-olds now, it's the 40-year-old stuff today that will be 50-year-old when you make the next, the next block of problems. That is a really unique issue. You and I were talking about the third piece of insurance, the health side,
Yes.
and it's interesting that we have lots of complications in P&C and life, no life and annuities, no question. But health, it's like you've got all the insurance complications, and then you also have that core industry that it's tied to. The health delivery space is also a complete and utter lovely thing,
Yes.
sarcastically, right? Like it's a mess. The hospitals, the insurance, like all of it is a total mess. And in this country, we outspend every country and we don't have better outcomes. So like it ain't working. You guys play in that space a little bit as well. Where do you have hope for it? Where do you see this sort of green shoots, if there are any? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, right, we have to fix it, right? You think of why we don't have more startups than we do. Well,
Yeah.
first problem is healthcare. Like, hey, I want to start my own company. Well, unless my spouse has a great insurance plan, you're talking about $30,000 out of
Yeah.
the gate for
Yeah.
healthcare expenses.
Right.
What? We're in a strange space in this country where we somehow attached getting health insurance to your employer. So I don't even see this as political, because I think, even if you are, far on one side, I think you'd support, industry and support innovation in this country. And I think this is a big barrier,
Yeah.
really big barrier. So we have a big problem that is, beyond my pay grade. Somebody's got to solve. Next generation will hopefully solve. We're kind of, we got into sort of a very niche space, which is called Medicare supplement insurance. So I think on the surface, it's you think it's very connected to retirement planning. Um, you think about like what happens, or some very important dates as you approach retirement. One of my prior companies, we had a program around legislative birthdays. So 59 and a half,
Yeah.
you may know this, 59 and a half, okay, all of a sudden you can start taking money out of your qualified plan without paying the 10% penalty from the IRS.
Yeah.
Okay. 62, you can take Social Security. 70, you must take Social Security. And then these rules have changed. By around 72, you have to start taking money out of all these plans. So, and by the way, at 65, a real important decision is you have to start taking Medicare. So even if you're working at 65, you got to file for Medicare.
Mhm.
Well, Medicare, and people don't realize when they're going into retirement that right out of the gate, it's probably going to cost each spouse $6,000 a year for their healthcare expenses, because Medicare pays up to a certain point, and then you've got this big deductible. And choice is, there are two forks in the road. You can say, let me go the Med Advantage route. When you see commercials on television, those are primarily been advertising Medicare Advantage plans, which are kind of like your HMO if you're working for a company, which is, here's the plan, everything is at once, don't worry about it. Medicare supplement insurance is one where, Bryan, if you want to see a specialist someplace else in the other part of the country, take your money, go do it. More expensive. This is Bryan, this is hard to navigate.
Yeah.
It's taken me 2 or 3 years really just to learn all the intricacies of these plans, I want to do Medicare supplement. Well, would you like plan N, A, F? I'm not making this up. Plan G. Oh, sorry, you want plan F? Well, guess what? What age are you? You know what? No, you missed the boat, because that was that's been shut down for new participants. It's hard. It's complicated.
Yeah. And we expect individuals to understand how to navigate it, and we expect young folks to come up with startups and new ideas to make it better.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Right. And then I'm not even talking about the ACA marketplace, which I think has been good for a lot of people. A lot of good for a lot of startups too.
Yeah.
But It's complicated. And I've seen some really good startups in this area, but it's hard because these pieces are so, there's so many pieces connected. If you're going to tackle this problem, well, you've got to hook into these two or three other parts.
Yeah. And there's a ton of behavior change tied to it in a way that there isn't necessarily in some of the other things that we would do more on the life or the P&C side.
Right.
This is why when I tell people I work in insurance, I always feel like within 3 seconds I need to be, but not health insurance. And I don't I feel like I need to say that. And I don't know why, but I think this is it, right? This is the reason why. It's usually a doctor who's asking me that. I'm like, well, I don't want them to hate me. And they all seem to hate the health insurers. So,
well, and I will say it's one area where I think it's been really tough as a startup to launch because there's a lot of inertia. When you start to go into healthcare, do you really want, I've got this plan. Do I really want to change my plan to save a couple of $100?
Yeah.
You had a lot of legislative changes and a lot of policy changes sort of shifting, which plans are preferred.
Yeah.
And the plans have changed a lot. So, I've seen some, it's a big decision for somebody to pick a plan because maybe I'm on this medication or I've got this particular healthcare concern. Which of these 50 plans is best for me? Oh, by the way, if I'm in this plan now, I may not be eligible for these others if I wait too long because the health conditions may change.
Right.
And I've got to get under it. So the permutations, Bryan, on this are incredibly complicated.
Well, and if you're not of Medicare age and you're employed and you get your health insurance through your employer, you're not just going out to market and buying like a car or anything else. You can't just shop around. It's like, well, here are the 3 things that they're offering me. So if I'm trying to start a new health insurer, how do I break into that?
Well, no, we actually, we brought an Israeli company into our company. This is one of the startups to do just that. So they have, this is before ChatGPT. They actually had their chat bot that will actually help employees sort through all those options. Because even with your limited options, there are tough decisions. And a question, you think, wait a second, I want to get acupuncture. Is this covered? Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least I know.
Competition I judged.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were. Okay.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh my, people need this. Like,
they do, right?
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. It's great until it keeps telling you, no, it's not covered. And you're like,
right. Well, look, it's true, but
it's true.
Yeah. Well, all right. We didn't solve the world's problems, unfortunately, in this conversation, but I think it is interesting that, going back to the original way that Nassau engaged in innovation, the way that progressed, I think innovation is a space where, as an industry, we've wasted a ton of money because we set up these innovation teams, they have these great conversations and nothing comes of it. And it's not to say there isn't value in looking around and whatnot, but they weren't doing it to help foster growth. And they didn't have the mechanisms to bring those ideas into the company because they throw it over the wall to the business and the business can't do anything with it because they got their own priorities and they don't have budget, et cetera. So we've hobbled it from the start. I love the way you guys started off with this. It's not about throwing it over the wall. It's about helping the development of these things more broadly and then moving more specifically into your own space. Because otherwise the efforts are just nice, but for what? And it's, for startups that's spinning their wheels, burning their runway, having all these conversations that take 18 months and we still haven't even made any progress really.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why I was excited to talk to you is I think as an industry, we need to think more about, well, when we say we do innovation, other than trying to get credit from AM Best for what we're spending on it, what are we genuinely doing to move that ball forward? And the way I think most carriers have adopted it hasn't actually worked out terribly well. It's interesting stuff, but that doesn't move anyone forward.
No, and I got to tell you, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to change. I kind of think of these companies, Bryan, as like amoebas. They're kind of like along. Here comes this or a cell, a virus comes in, and does it get expelled? And what point does the virus actually become part of the DNA of this thing?
Yeah.
And it's painful, you need dedicate, and I can see arguments both sides. And well, listen, everybody's got their day job. We got to put these people over here to really scan the universe, know what it is. Okay. Pitfall is, those are the special people with the ideas,
Right.
and we're the people doing the work, that,
Right.
where that, we've
Yeah,
seen
you
this.
got to get them more aligned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for this, Paul. It's good to hear from a company that's been trying to navigate this. And I think with humility and honesty that like, look, it's a journey and we're going to evolve as we try to help the community evolve. I think that's really critical. And yeah, please do solve the health insurance.
Yes, I will. It's
no pressure.
My board here. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's great to get some time with you. Thank you. Thank you to Paul for sitting down with me and sharing a little bit with all of you. I have been watching Nassau, and they really have done, I think, a good job of being a part of that innovation movement. And I think, it's the conversation we were just having at the end here. We're trying in the industry. It's not that we aren't putting in the effort. And I know there's still a struggle. And so I wanted to at least highlight some of the way that they've decided to engage with it. And it's a progression, right? It started off with a broader kind of investing in the movement and in their area geographically, and progressing into more of a focus on what they directly can engage in. And I think that's great because it helped their culture, the organization, see what's there, help foster it, and bring not just the community forward, but their own people and their own mindset to really set them up to be able to do innovation, even better. I think it's an interesting approach that I would love to see more of us take some time and be like, well, what if we tried it that way? Because, this standalone innovation team is great and they're seeing lots of cool stuff, but we are struggling to move a lot of those ideas forward because the disconnect with the business. And I don't know how you can overcome that if they're always separated out. And if the organization hasn't sort of been on that innovation journey itself, not just for the standalone innovation folks. So something for everyone to think about. Thank you again to Paul for joining me, and to the team at Nassau for giving him up for a little bit. And I hope that I will have you all back next time for another great conversation. And, if this was interesting to you and you think it might be to those around you, spread the love, share the podcast, let them know about it. You can obviously rate and review the show on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever you're listening, or if you're watching this on YouTube, give a thumbs up, subscribe, share a comment, but tell someone else about the show and say, hey, maybe you should listen to this. It could give you some ideas, some interest in the industry, some re-engagement in the work that we do. So spreading the word is super valuable, not just for me helping the show grow, but for you and for those around you. You build that community engaged in the change that's possible in the industry. So with that, thank you again, and I will see you back shortly. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.